I don't know about you, but I love Thanksgiving. I think it's one of the most underrated holidays anywhere. Like, I really love it. Hanging out with the friends, hanging out with family, eating a ton of turkey and cornbread dressing. I love an excuse to sit around watching football all day. And I had a great Thanksgiving. And my hope is that you did as well. But here's what happens. It seems like once we eat that last bite of turkey, the season immediately kind of flips over to Christmas. And I know at our house, it's like Thursday we eat turkey and watch football. Then Friday we chill. And then Saturday we're out buying a Christmas tree and we're decorating it. And whether we like it or not, we are now full on into the Christmas season. Now my guess is that some of you just love the Christmas season. And some of you are already exhausted. Because Christmas, it's packed with shopping and wrapping and partying, traveling, hanging out with family and friends. Some you love and some not so much. And that's what makes up much of Christmas. Of course, not the real meaning, but the holiday of Christmas. But there is one Christmas tradition that I find absolutely amusing, and it's the sending of the family Christmas letter. And I'm not talking about the pre-printed Christmas cards that share kind of a warm Christmas sentiment. I'm talking about that one-page long, sometimes front and back, family update letter that so many of us compose. And what I find amusing about these letters is they seem to kind of serve as a holiday PR campaign for our entire family. It's like our once-a-year opportunity for us to put our best foot forward and make ourselves look slightly better than perhaps we really are. So I started thinking, what if we wrote Christmas letters that told the story of what really happened to our family over the past year? What if we were just brutally honest? What would Christmas letters read like then? Well, I started on one, and mine might sound something like this. Merry Christmas from the Fergusons. We hope you and yours are doing well this holiday season. We wanted to catch you up on what our lives have looked like for the last 365 days. Well, in February, Sue and I celebrated our 27th anniversary. We love each other a lot, but the truth is, we still fight about a lot of the same stuff that we fought about our first year in marriage. So that gets kind of discouraging. I worked way too much again this year. It's a pattern. It's probably an addiction. I doubt I'll ever recover. Amy and Josh are both out of school, one out of grad school, one out of undergrad. And now they have the joy of paying off those school loans. That's inspiring. Caleb, our youngest, has picked out of college, but he doesn't really know what he wants to do or what he wants to major in. So, what's $40,000 a year to invest in that? My parents are getting older. My mom's eyesight is going. My dad's going to the doctor to find out what a high PSA count means. And another year's passed. Most people think everything's great. Good, not great. Merry Christmas. Wah, wah. I think I'm depressed. Now, we never write Christmas letters even remotely like that, do we? And usually we leave the bad stuff, the sad stuff out, and we try to fill it up with a whole lot of positivity about what has happened and optimism about the future and a whole long laundry list of accomplishments. Why do we go to so much trouble to paint a picture of what our lives would look like when we make Norman Rockwell jealous? Why do we go to such great lengths to paint a picture of success and pleasure and happiness? Well, just to be clear, if you typically send those Christmas cards and letters, keep sending them. I really like them. I will not use them as a sermon illustration, I promise. But can we have an honest moment? Just a moment of reflection. Because I think if we step back and we look at our lives, we look at our emotions, I think most of us would admit that sometimes these Christmas letters are really more a sign of who we really, really, really want people to think we are and how we really, really want people to like us. We crave popularity. We're addicted to what each other think of us. And why is that? Well, maybe it's because for some of us, we received too little affirmation growing up. We had a void of being praised or complimented when we were younger. And so here we are as adults craving what we should have gotten when we were kids. Or perhaps we become addicted to what other people think of us because we actually received maybe too much empty affirmation growing up. We received so much affirmation, so much praise from others, regardless of what we did, that we never really developed a sense of self-efficacy or self-worth apart from what others think of us. Either way, I think that it's safe to say that most of us place a high value on what other people think, and perhaps far higher than we even realized. We want to be liked. And today's social media, I think, just makes it even worse. How many of you, honestly, you get a little bit of a buzz when you post something on Facebook or Instagram and you get, 20 likes or 25 likes or 50 likes or maybe 100 likes? Doesn't it kind of make you feel good? It's crazy, right? Recently, the publisher for the book, Finding Your Way Back to God, that John and I wrote, told us they'd like for us to write another book. Well, in addition to that, they also told me that they wanted me to do more and better marketing, and they would like me to kind of move, actually on Facebook, from what they call a profile page to a Facebook fan page. Now, the whole thing sounded very weird, and I think it sounds crazy for a pastor to have a fan page. Seems like an oxymoron. But here's the deal. I wanted the publisher to like me, right? So I agreed to it. But I didn't want people at church not to like me and think fan page. I mean, who does Dave Ferguson think he is, a fan page? So I thought, and I figured this out, well, sometimes it's called a public figure page. So I started calling it a public figure page so you would like me. So I put up a public figure page, and then it didn't seem like enough people were liking me. So I actually bought a Facebook ad, spent $15 on a Facebook ad to make sure I got more people to like my public figure page. I mean, the whole thing's crazy. I got a fan page so the publisher would like me, but I called it a public figure page so you would like me. And then when enough people didn't like me, I paid to make sure I was liked. I don't know if you can relate to any of that, but I think deep down inside of us, there's this desire to be liked. You know, this craving for affirmation. I want to be liked. Whether it's consciously or subconsciously, I think most of us believe that our value as a person is based on how other people see us, what they think about us. And bottom line, we want people to like us. And because of that, it affects us. It affects what we say or even what we don't say in our conversations. Sometimes it affects what career we pursue or what school we're going to send our kids to or what we buy or who we date or how honest we are in our relationships. Well, if you can relate to this, then today is for people just like you and people like me. What we're doing today is we're wrapping up our current series called Lies We Believe. And it's a series about confronting lies that keep us from recognizing our true, genuine identity. And understand, when you find your way back to God and you enter into a relationship with God, what God does is He declares, you are my beloved child. That's your true identity. That's your true status. And He says to you, you are my child. I love you. And even beyond that, I am pleased with you. But I think we have such a hard time grasping that. We have a hard time actually living into that truth. And so instead, what we do is we fall for lies that tell us a different kind of story about ourselves. And so when we started the series, we said lie number 1 is this performance lie. And it says, you know what? I am what I do. Last week, we talked about the possession lie, a lie that says I am what I have. Well, today we're wrapping it up. We're going to take a look at a third lie, and it's the popularity lie. And the popularity lie is a lie that says, I am what others think. Now, throughout the series, we've been looking at a story from Luke chapter 4 about Jesus and the temptation. And if you missed either part of it, let me just kind of catch you up to speed. Jesus is starting his public ministry. And up until this point in his 30-year-old life, he's lived in really kind of relative obscurity. No one really knows who he is. He hasn't accomplished a whole lot. Yet at the same time, he's got a whole world that he has to save. That's his agenda. Well, Jesus begins his public ministry by being baptized by John in the Jordan River. He goes down in the waters. He comes up out of the water. That's when the voice of God, God the Father, declares about Jesus, you are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased. And so right there, at the beginning of his difference-making ministry, God the Father declares his true identity. So that happens, and then right after his baptism, Jesus, now full of the Spirit, he goes out of the desert for 40 days where the devil immediately begins to tempt him. And here's what it says. It says, the devil led him to Jerusalem and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. If you're the Son of God, he said, throw yourself down from here, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you carefully. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. If you are the Son of God. Now remember, God's already declared that Jesus is his beloved Son. But here comes Satan now, challenging Jesus. Hey, prove it. It's as if he's saying to Jesus, if you're really the Son of God, why aren't you doing anything impressive? Wow me. Why don't you do something to amaze the crowds? Prove to people who you really are by doing something really spectacular. The core behind this temptation is this. Satan is trying to get Jesus to move away from his trust in his Father's acceptance to attempt to earn the acceptance on his own. Essentially, that's the force behind the popularity lie, that God's opinion isn't enough, that there must be someone else out there that can better validate our worth, that we need approval from someone other than God. Now remember, at this point in Jesus' ministry, no healings have occurred. There's been no remarkable teachings, no spectacular miracles. So surely jumping from the highest point in front of a crowd would kind of jumpstart him to stardom, wouldn't it? And when people hear about Jesus pulling a stunt off like that in Jerusalem, kind of Jerusalem's version of the Sears Tower, I mean, who wouldn't want to follow him? But that's not what Jesus chooses. He does not fall for the popularity lie. Instead, Jesus responds and he answers. He says this, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." Jesus refuses to test God. What does it mean to test God? Well, actually what Jesus is doing, he's quoting from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 16, which actually says the same thing, but it adds a little another detail. It says, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test as you did at Massah." See, at Massah, the ancient Israelites were out in the wilderness too. And instead of trusting God to provide for them when they were thirsty, they actually demanded Moses give us something to drink. To test God. To test God is to display really a lack of trust. For Jesus to test God in this moment would mean to kind of waver in his trust of the Father who'd already said, "No, you're my beloved Son," and instead try to prove his worth by impressing people. I think we're tempted to do that at times. Lots of times. Often our temptations are centered on chasing kind of the quick approval of people rather than relying on this long, steady acceptance from God the Father. I think that's sometimes why employees were tempted to overwork, why students are tempted to give in to kind of peer pressure and drink. That's why we fill our social media feeds with pictures and restaurants and concerts and beautiful vacation spots. That's why parents exaggerate the accomplishments of their kids. That's why Christ followers sometimes overcommit themselves to ministry activities way beyond what they should. The voice of God that calls us beloved child seems so soft compared to the voices of people standing around us. So we knowingly or sometimes unknowingly, we set out to impress them, to be someone they'll notice, someone they'll value. The devil says jump, and then we jump. You ever find yourself tempted to do that? To make choices based on what other people think and to take action in order to impress them. Of course you're tempted to do that. We all are. You're human. I'm human. And Jesus was tempted to do it too because he was fully human. When the devil said, "Jump," don't think for a moment he wasn't tempted to jump. But what would have happened if he jumped? What was at stake in this temptation? I mean, if Jesus had jumped, he would have been living according to someone else's script for his life and not the Father's. He would have sacrificed his purpose, the vision of his life, just for a brief moment of glory. And see, that's the tragic ending when we fall into the popularity lie, when we give into it. It keeps us from becoming who God created us to be. It kind of derails us from living out God's true purpose and vision for our lives. In his letter to the Galatians, the Apostle Paul, he admits himself that he's tempted to give into the popularity lie. He says, "I am now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God. Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." The popularity lie whispers, "I am what others think." It's in direct conflict with the voice of God that says, "No, you are my child. I love you. I'm pleased with you." When we choose to believe the popularity lie, we drown out the voice that calls us beloved, the voice that says we're accepted. And we live life constantly kind of fluctuating between the approval and disapproval of this person, that person, and others. And we're crippled by those opinions, and we crumble under this pressure to be popular. Conversely, when we're faithful to our true selves as sons and daughters of God, what we experience God's best for us. Jesus didn't live his life trying to impress others because he didn't need to. His heart was full with his Father's love and his Father's acceptance. His approval was full and fully received before he even did one thing in his public ministry. To break the power of the popularity lie today, I want to challenge every one of you to wrestle with two very important, but I would say difficult questions. And here's the first one. Ask yourself this. Whose opinion is going to matter the most? Whose opinion is going to matter the most? Is it God's? Is it the Father who calls you his beloved child? Or is it a person or a group of people you're trying to impress? There's a reality that we need to be aware of. In choosing God's approval over the approval of others, Jesus himself, he disappointed people. Go back and read the Gospels. He disappointed his own family who thought he'd gone crazy. He disappointed people in his hometown. I mean, if you remember at one point, they wanted to push him off a cliff. He disappointed the religious leaders by not falling in line with their theology. He disappointed the crowds who wanted a Messiah that would conquer the Roman oppressors. When we stop performing to earn the approval of others, we'll face this reality. We're going to disappoint people. We'll disappoint people as we choose to live out God's purpose and God's vision for our lives. So the first question, let me ask you again, whose opinion is going to matter the most? And if it's God's opinion that's going to matter the most, here's a second question. Consider this. Who do I need to risk disappointing? Specifically, who do I need to risk disappointing? As I've been talking, who came to your mind when I asked that question? Understand, not that person or group of people's responsibility to break the power of the popularity in your life. It's yours. It's mine. We are the ones who believe the lie, that we are what others think. We are the ones who are valuing their opinion more than the voice of the Father who calls us beloved, beloved child. Who do you need to risk disappointing in order to become the person that God created you to be? Every day we face the temptation of the popularity lie, that lie that says, jump, so that others will be impressed. But instead of giving into that lie, as a community of brothers and sisters who share the same Father, let's remind one another every day that we are loved, that we are valued simply because we are children of God. And ultimately, that's what matters most, what God thinks about us, not what others think about us.